The World Explained. Lecture 4. Why People Live in Different Realities. You and I may live on the same street, go to the same school, shop at the same store, but we may not live in the same reality. My beliefs will possibly seem obviously wrong to you as well as yours to me. How could this happen? The answer isn't stupidity or ignorance. It's how human minds build reality. In this video, I'll show you how human brains accept facts and why disagreement about reality is not an accident. To understand why such disparity happens, we first need to look at how humans acquire knowledge, starting with the primal mental connections that turn experiences into facts. In earlier talks, I introduced the idea of a neem. A neem is a functional unit of knowledge in our minds, a mental connection we form when we link one new experience to another or to something we already know. Think of a neem as a memory or a mental fact. For example, when you feel water drops falling from the sky and later hear the word rain, your brain links those experiences, creating a word neem. In this lecture, we will focus on two kinds of fact neems. Event fact neems, neems of past events, such as it rained last Sunday or Napoleon Bonaparte died on St. Helena, and relation fact neems, neems about how things are, such as water is H2O or a book is on the table. If you'd like a deeper and more systematic explanation of these ideas, they're developed in my book, Reality Check. Is the World What You Think? The link is in the description, but everything you need to follow this lecture is right here. Over our lives, we build our world model from neems based on experiences. But a single human life gives us only so many direct experiences. Most of what we know about the world comes from other people, as stories, reports, books, news, teachings. That's how we form most of our fact neems. But this secondhand information can be wrong, by accident or on purpose. Even so, we often create a neem for that information and treat it as knowledge. How robust a nemetic connection formed this way usually depends on four factors. 1. How many times it is repeated. Repetition reinforces the memory. This follows the Hebb's rule in neuroscience. Repetition makes connections stronger. 2. Who delivers the message. Information from trusted or authoritative sources carries more weight. A fact of ongoing Martian invasion will be more strongly imparted in our minds if delivered by a top government official rather than a science fiction writer. 3. How well it fits with what we already believe. If a new fact clashes with existing beliefs, we hesitate to accept it unless it can be reconciled. Again, the news of the Martian invasion may not sit well with our prior knowledge of Mars as an uninhabited planet. 4. How many people around us believe it. Being part of a group that shares the same facts makes those facts harder to leave behind. This nemetic link strength corresponds to a truth value of the created neem, telling how strongly we feel it is true. Thus, the truth value of a fact is encoded in the neem at the same time it is formed in our brains. This is our internal truth, how true something feels to us, not the formal, philosophical notion of truth of propositions used in philosophy. Take this example of two people of different backgrounds and living in different settings, processing the same news of a Martian invasion. Depending on the interplay of all four factors, they may arrive at completely different evaluations of the event, ranging from accepting the fact as true to dismissing it as a hoax. If you need more time to check the details of this example, you can pause the video now. Otherwise, continue watching. Because we usually can't check every fact directly, we rely on these circumstantial factors to judge trustworthiness. That's our vulnerability. Governments, PR departments, media outlets, and others can push selected facts, true, partly true, or false, to advance their goals. Propaganda is especially effective when it's coherent and persistent. Repeat something long enough and it can become accepted as true and shape a whole narrative. That is why authoritarian rulers who have managed to secure a prolonged grip on power and control over information sources are often more successful in building a homogeneous pool of like-minded citizens than democratic governments that tend to be re-elected every few years and do not have enough time to establish any specific narrative that can help to interpret facts that they advance. If evidence disappears or is destroyed and memories fade, even known falsehoods can become indistinguishable from true facts in people's minds. Winners of wars and political struggles have used that tactic for centuries. Falsifying facts isn't always done for political or material gains. Sometimes they're just elaborate hoaxes. One such example is a recent Chinese Wikipedia incident. A self-admitted housewife invented a fictitious story about a very rich silver mine in the 14th to 15th centuries Russia. She entered over 200 articles and modified hundreds more to describe the imaginary history of operations of the mine and even wars for possession of it involving real historical figures as well as made-up ones in such intricate details and so skillfully intertwined with the real history that it was almost impossible to realize it is a fraud. Another similar case was a hoax by a university student who created a compelling Wikipedia article about a fictitious Scottish inventor of an electric bread toaster, which was accepted as a real fact for almost a decade and used as such without a doubt by more than a dozen book authors, one Scottish school, and even by a Scottish government agency. If not for lucky cross-checking, these fabrications could have become accepted historical fact. It is impossible to estimate how many event-fact memes that we currently consider true are like these. How can we fine-tune our memes' truth values? Because our model of reality is built of memes, internal brain-based links, we cannot use a correspondence theory of truth, the idea that a statement is true if it matches the objective outside reality. In the mimetic view, we have no direct access to such an independent reality to check against. Instead, we must evaluate our memes using practical methods, which might differ for particular types of memes. Events we personally witnessed usually have higher truth value than secondhand reports. Standing in a pouring rain will trump a local forecaster reporting current sunshine and blue sky. But even direct memories can fade or get contaminated over time, so it is crucial to keep records, like photos, notes, or videos for important facts. Relation fact memes, how things are often easy to check. Look, measure, test, repeat the observation. To see if the book is on the table, go check the table. To confirm water is H2O, run a chemical test. Event fact names are harder to verify because you can't replay the past. For those, we use causal compatibility. An event fact is accepted as true only if it is causally compatible with other known true facts. In other words, no accepted true fact should make the new event fact impossible. Proving an event fact true usually requires checking it against all other facts, a community effort. On the other hand, proving that a fact is not true can be much easier by finding just a single causally non-compatible true fact. Such a method is widely used in criminal justice. By providing as an alibi a true fact that is causally incompatible with the fact of the alleged crime, the suspect may be acquitted. All accept that true facts should be causally compatible with each other. They should not contradict one another when we look at how events lead from one to the next. But because we never know all true facts or do not know for sure which facts are true, it is possible for different, internally consistent sets of facts to exist side by side. Each such set forms what we call an epistemic paradigm, a large shared worldview. Multiple paradigms can coexist at the same time, as we see with different religions, from major denominations with long and rich histories to small sects led by charismatic leaders. Another large group consists of political paradigms, such as communism or anarchism. Yet another group includes paradigms built around conspiracy theories. All these paradigms are not mutually exclusive. A devoted Christian, for example, may also believe in a deep state conspiracy, and then the idea that cell phone radiation damages the brain. As long as all of these beliefs can be made to fit into a single, coherent worldview. Finally, some paradigms can replace one another over long periods of history, such as the shift from a flat Earth view to a spherical Earth one. These changes rarely happen quickly. Paradigm shifts are usually slow and often take generations. In the past, most of the facts people accepted came from the same local sources that shaped their worldview in the first place: family members, teachers, religious figures, and community leaders. These views were passed from generation to generation. Over time, societies built laws and social norms around shared paradigms, and those norms reinforced the paradigms themselves. This shared understanding of reality acted as cultural glue, holding communities and entire countries together for centuries. Because paradigms were so deeply tied to identity and survival, nations fought fiercely in countless wars against any attempt by outsiders to impose a different worldview on them. As we see, paradigms were historically confined to specific locations, first to small groups, then to larger communities, and eventually, with the rise of radio and television, to entire countries. But this situation is changing rapidly. Increased relocation of people and the rise of the internet have led to the formation of virtual communities, groups of people who share the same paradigms while being physically scattered across the globe. This creates a new phenomenon, a conflict between local rules and standards, which are still tied to geography, and globally distributed paradigms, which spread online without regard to borders. On top of this, recent advances in AI-generated deepfake video technology dramatically increase the number of disinformation options. These tools can provide highly realistic visual proofs for so-called alternative facts, exploiting our strong reliance on and trust in what we see. Today, anyone can choose to consume only the information they like, whatever best fits their existing world model and personal inclinations. In some cases, entire worldviews are formed, or at least heavily shaped, by online content alone. The consequences are striking. Your next-door neighbor, your coworker, or even a close friend or relative may end up living in a reality very different from yours, sometimes to the point where meaningful communication becomes extremely difficult or even impossible. Are we cursed to live in a world fragmented into multiple paradigms? To some degree, yes. We cannot force everyone to think the same way, but there is reason for cautious optimism. An AI expert system trained on very large collections of verified facts could offer enormous data storage and a unique ability to quickly retrieve relevant information. Such a system might detect incompatible fake facts, weed out false narratives, and make historical records far easier to search and cross-check. If a universally trusted information source, something like an AI-based Wikipedia, could be created, it might significantly improve how we form memes by providing a reliable authority. Over time, this might lead to broader agreement on basic facts, even if deeper differences in worldview remain. Finally, there is another way to understand this multiple paradigm world phenomenon. We can use the free energy principle introduced in earlier lectures. In plain terms, it states, people tend to live in environments that minimize surprise. We reduce surprise either by changing our beliefs or by changing our surroundings to fit them. Once we adopt a certain type of information source, we'll keep preferring the same kind to avoid surprise and talk to like-minded people, which creates subject-related communities around both true and false facts. Inside such a community, life is low surprise, regardless of whether the beliefs are accurate. That's why pulling someone out of such an echo chamber is hard. Small changes won't stay. People's world models drift back to the familiar low surprise state. Two events can cause radical worldview changes. One, big environment change, moving, changing jobs, or shifting your social network can suddenly expose you to very different inputs and force model adjustments. 2. Major surprise. A shocking personal event, serious illness of self or loved one, for example, can raise subjective entropy enough to force deep reevaluation. This is like giving a trapped object enough activation energy to escape a local minimum in physics. But after the upheaval, the person may settle into any new low surprise state, possibly back where they started. The free energy approach is still new in brain science, but promising for understanding how worldviews form and change. For a deeper dive into this topic, and for answers to even more questions, check out my book, Reality Check: Is the World What You Think? The link is in the description below. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like it and subscribe to my channel so you won't miss the next one. Thank you for watching.